Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. So, imagine paying $200,000 for just a single week of vacation.
Right, which is, happening more than you'd think.
Oh, totally. And you're promised this perfectly curated, like friction-free paradise where literally every detail is managed for you. But then imagine realizing that the second you step off the ship to, I don't know, pet a pig on a beach, you are legally entirely on your own.
Yeah, that is a stark contrast.
It really is.
Yeah.
So from who's accountable off the ship to how Embarkation works on the pier, plus a look at the next mega ship, today's stories focus on what cruise travelers can expect and what they should question before booking.
Yeah, and it's really the central paradox of the modern cruise industry right now because, on the water, they engineer total control.
Absolutely.
But on land, the variables are just entirely out of their hands, but they still have to sell the illusion that the entire journey is, completely seamless.
Right, and that illusion is actually being heavily tested in federal court right now. We are following a lawsuit that was filed in March 2026 against Carnival Corporation by a passenger named Carol Rye Knight.
Right, and the incident driving this lawsuit actually happened a year earlier, back in March 2025, right? Down in Nassau, Bahamas.
Exactly. So Knight booked this shore excursion. It's called the Swimming with the Pigs Express Tour.
Which has a very high appeal for families. I mean, it is one of those staple excursions that is just heavily featured in all the marketing materials for Bahamian itinerary.
Oh yeah, everywhere. But, okay, so about 10 minutes into the transport boat ride heading out to the beach, the bench Knight is sharing with two other passengers just completely collapses.
Wow. And the weather was fine, right?
Totally calm. I mean, to be clear, this wasn't a freak storm or anything. The physical hardware of the boat just failed.
Jeez.
Yeah. She is thrown to the floor, nearly goes overboard, and the injuries are pretty extensive. So she's taken back to her ship, which was the Carnival Elation.
Okay, and for context, the Elation is one of Carnival's older fantasy-class ships, so it's a smaller footprint by today's standards.
Right.
It holds around 2,100 guests, which basically means the onboard medical facilities are robust, sure, but they aren't like a full-scale trauma center.
Exactly. So they diagnose her on board with a fractured tailbone, but later, when she returns home and gets a proper MRI, she discovers she has severe lower spinal tears at L4, L5, and S1, plus a bulging disc.
Oh man, that is serious.
Yeah, really bad. So she's now suing for medical costs, lost wages, and, pain and suffering.
Right, which brings us to the actual legal battleground here, because the severity of the injury isn't really the core of the debate.
No, not at all.
The debate is about who is legally responsible for that broken bench.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because Carnival's defense is entirely built on the fact that they didn't operate that transport boat.
Right.
Their website states, pretty clearly that shore excursions are provided by independent local operators.
But Knight's legal team is arguing something that I think probably resonates with anyone who has ever booked a cruise.
Oh, absolutely. She booked this tour directly through Carnival's platform. Like, Carnival marketed it. Carnival sold it.
Yep.
And if you look at their site today, that specific excursion still has a 4.4 out of 5-star rating right there on their storefront. So Knight claims she never interacted with a third-party vendor until the excursion actually began.
What's fascinating here is that this is a massive legal gray area that courts are currently having to untangle.
Right.
The industry has spent decades constructing these contractual firewalls because the strategy is to generate the booking revenue from the excursion because taking a cut of those sales is incredibly lucrative.
Oh, huge margins.
Exactly. But they want to do that without taking on the physical liability of, operating boats or ATVs or zip lines in foreign jurisdictions. They position themselves merely as a booking agent.
Yeah, and I understand the logic of a booking agent, but the execution feels like a trap. Well, think about it like this. If I ordered delivery through a major app, right, and the local restaurant undercooks the chicken, I blame the restaurant. The app just facilitated the transaction.
Sure.
But the cruise experience is entirely different. You don't use a third-party app. You use the cruise line's proprietary app.
Oh, right.
You are on their Wi-Fi. You are paying with the room key tied to your onboard account. Like, the entire environment is designed to make you feel like you never left their corporate umbrella.
Yeah, that is essentially the concept of a parent agency in maritime law.
A parent agency.
Yeah. Plaintiff lawyers argue that cruise lines actively blur the lines of corporate identity. When the marketing materials, the digital interface, the billing, when all of that is unified under one brand, a reasonable consumer assumes the cruise line is vetting and controlling these local
Right,
operators.
which makes total sense.
Right, because the physical transition from the cruise ship to the excursion boat is meant to feel invisible to keep you relaxed. But legally, that transition is a hard boundary, where the cruise line's duty of care theoretically just vanishes.
Wow. So they're basically weaponizing the seamlessness of the vacation against the passenger's right to liability. Like, they want the financial loop closed, but the legal loop broken.
Yeah, I mean, that is one way to frame it. The tension is that shore excursions are essential to the product. You just can't sell a Caribbean cruise without the promise of snorkeling or, swimming with pigs.
Right.
But the cruise lines simply cannot physically manage thousands of small independent tour businesses across dozens of countries.
Yeah, that's fair. But it isn't just the independent tour operators causing friction on land. The physical infrastructure of the ports themselves is actively breaking down under the weight of this industry.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, we are tracking a really chaotic situation in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah.
Philiport is officially returning to cruise operations after a 15-year hiatus.
Which is a major strategic move to capture that mid-Atlantic drive-to-cruise market.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Except severe winter snowstorms completely derailed the construction of the new terminal. It's just not finished.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But Norwegian Cruise Line has the Norwegian Jewel scheduled to sail to Bermuda from there on April 16th, 2026.
Wow. So the ship is arriving, thousands of passengers have tickets, but there's literally no terminal to process them.
Exactly. So Norwegian has engineered a workaround, and it is a logistical nightmare.
I can imagine. The physical reality of boarding 2,500 people onto a vessel requires massive, specialized infrastructure. When that fails, the alternatives are incredibly primitive.
Primitive is exactly the right word. Passengers cannot even go to the pier. Instead, they're being told to drive to the Clarion Hotel near the airport.
Wait, a hotel?
Yes, and they have to pay $16 a day just to park their cars at this hotel. Then they drop their luggage on the sidewalk, go inside a hotel ballroom to physically check in and wait for a shuttle bus.
Oh my gosh.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
That shuttle bus then drives them to the port, which is an active construction zone where they have to walk outside through a temporary security tent to finally get on the ship.
You're kidding.
Nope. And the absolute worst part, if you require wheelchair access, the hotel check-in cannot accommodate you. You have to somehow get yourself directly to the construction site pier.
That is just wow. And this isn't even a one-off delay, right? They are utilizing this hotel ballroom embarkation strategy for the Norwegian Pearl well into the winter of 2026, too.
Yeah, it's wild.
What you are seeing is the rigid, unyielding schedule of the cruise industry just violently colliding with the unpredictability of terrestrial infrastructure. I mean, these ships are booked years in advance. They cannot simply wait in the harbor for concrete to dry.
Right. But it fundamentally breaks the promise of a luxury vacation. It's like buying a premium ticket to a five-star resort, but you have to check in at an airport motel, drag your bags across a highway, and walk through a construction site in a hard hat to reach the front desk.
Yeah, you start your vacation deeply stressed.
Exactly.
And Philadelphia is just one symptom of a much larger geographic rejection happening globally. The ships are scaling up at a rate that 20th century port cities simply cannot absorb anymore.
Yes, and Charleston, South Carolina is a perfect example of that geographic rejection. They are undergoing a massive terminal redevelopment right now, and local authorities are severely restricting large ships from docking.
Right.
Because of that, Norwegian is being forced to swap its July 2026 Charleston stops for Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Which is just a staggering itinerary change.
Right.
You are taking a passenger who packed for the humid subtropical climate of the American South in July and sending them to the maritime climate of eastern Canada.
It's total geographic whiplash.
Yeah.
But it really highlights how inflexible these massive ships are. And there are other disruptions too, like the 2025 landslide near South Sawyer Glacier.
Oh, yeah, in Alaska.
Right, it caused so much geological instability that Carnival had to swap Tracy Armfjord for Endicott Armfjord for their 2026 sailings. And then in New Zealand, a tragic passenger death combined with severe subtropical weather forced Royal Caribbean's Anthem of the Seas to cancel a Taranga stop and redirect to Napier.
The variables are just endless.
They really are. Carnival Splitter even canceled an entire 10-night New Zealand trip in October 2027 just to accommodate a full ship charter. It's like if a port says no or weather hits, there just aren't many backup options that can physically accommodate vessels of that size.
Yeah, people really don't realize the sheer physical force these modern megaships exert on their environment.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, there was a video making the rounds, again, from 7 years ago, showing the harmony of the seas leaving Port Everglades. Have you seen this?
Oh, I know exactly the one you're talking about.
It is wild to watch because as the ship moves through the narrow channel, the water along the shoreline literally gets sucked away. It looks like the ocean is draining.
Yeah.
The water pulls back forcefully and then surges forward, sending people on the beach sprinting away with their towels.
Right. It is a very visceral demonstration of Bernoulli's principle in fluid dynamics.
Bernoulli's principle.
Yeah, I mean, most people look at a ship that size and just think of it as a floating hotel. But physically, it is a massive industrial machine. When a vessel displaces that much mass in confined channel, the ship's propellers push an astronomical volume of water backward to move the hull forward.
So it's effectively creating a vacuum.
In a sense, yes. Bernoulli's principle basically dictates that as a fluid speeds up, so in this case, the water rushing past the hull to fill the space the ship just left, its pressure drops.
Okay.
That localized drop in pressure literally pulls the water away from the nearby shoreline into the channel. And then once the ship passes, the pressure equalizes, and all that displaced water violently surges back onto the beach.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that integrating 21st century megaships into 20th century coastal infrastructure is physically destructive.
Man, so if you look at the board right now, local off-ship excursions are a legal minefield for liability. Terrestrial ports are either under construction, physically rejecting the ships, or completely altering itineraries. I mean, it sounds like booking a cruise right now is like buying tickets to a Broadway show, but you have to check your coat at a diner 3 blocks away. The theater is under construction, and the second act gets rewritten by the weather.
Exactly.
How is the industry dealing with this unpredictability? The physical world is just too messy for the cruise industry's business model.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces a strategic pivot. If the land is too unpredictable, the only logical solution is to stop relying on the land entirely. You engineer a closed-loop ecosystem where you control every single variable.
Enter the floating fortress.
Yes.
Royal Caribbean just announced the details for the next evolution of this strategy, the Hero of the Seas. It is the 4th ship in their Icon class, set to debut in Miami in August 2027.
Which is huge.
Yeah, and to make room for it, they're actually moving the original Icon of the Seas over to Galveston. But the raw data on the Hero of the Seas is difficult to even process.
The scale is completely unprecedented.
It is registered at 248,663 gross tons. Now, I know gross tons is a maritime measurement, but it doesn't mean weight. Right?
Correct. Yeah. Gross tonnage is actually a measure of enclosed internal volume, not physical weight.
Okay.
So 1 gross ton roughly equals 100 cubic feet of enclosed space. So when we talk about a vessel nearing 250,000 gross tons, we are talking about an internal volume that rivals major urban skyscrapers, just laid on its side, motorized and floated.
That is mind-blowing. And inside that massive volume, they are basically building a self-sustaining city. It requires a crew of 2,350 people just to serve a maximum guest capacity of 7,600.
Right, so that is a population of nearly 10,000 people living on a single hull.
Yeah. And to feed them, the ship features 28 different dining venues. And these aren't just the traditional buffet lines either.
Oh, definitely not.
They're building the Orleans Parish Supper Club, which pairs multi-course Creole and Cajun dining with live jazz. They have the Royal Railway Hero Station, which is like this immersive dining experience happening inside a simulated train car.
Wow.
They have an ice skating rink called Absolute Zero. And of course, a massive Category 6 water park complex on the top deck with the first funnel raft slide at sea.
Right, and what you are describing isn't just a list of amenities, it is a masterclass in demographic compartmentalization.
Break that down. How does that change the business model?
Well, the golden goose of the modern cruise industry is multi-generational travel. They want the grandparents, the parents, and the teenagers all booking together.
Right. Big family trips.
Exactly. But the friction there is that grandparents generally hate the noise of a water park, and teenagers have zero interest in a live jazz supper club.
True.
Historically, ships were a shared space where everyone just kind of compromised. But with a hull this massive, Royal Caribbean doesn't have to compromise anymore. They compartmentalize.
Oh, which totally explains the pool layout.
Okay.
Because they have 9 distinct pools on this ship, and they are incredibly surgical about who is allowed where.
Yes.
Like, they built the new tropical Coconut Cove specifically to keep young families and children contained and entertained. But then on the exact same ship, far away from the kids, you have the Hideaway, which is an adults-only zone with the largest swim-up bar at sea. Plus, they expanded the swim and tonic area.
Exactly. By building distinct micro-resorts within the mega-resort, they ensure that every specific demographic is perfectly catered to in their own little bubble.
Right.
And a perfectly catered guest is a guest who spends money continuously. If the teenagers are bored, they stop spending. If the adults are annoyed by screaming children, they go back to their cabins instead of buying premium cocktails. So compartmentalization really maximizes the onboard yield.
Yeah, and the yield they're extracting from the top end of the market is staggering. Here's where it gets really interesting. Royal Caribbean revealed the ultimate family treehouse for this ship.
Oh, this is wild.
It is a 3-level suite that sleeps 12 people. It features a private whirlpool on a rooftop terrace, a dedicated 2-deck teen space, and a hideout game room. The price for this single suite on a peak holiday sailing, it can exceed $200,000 for 1 week.
Which is just, I mean, the economics of a $200,000 suite on a mass market cruise line are fascinating.
Yeah.
Very few families can actually afford that. But that single booking subsidizes a massive portion of the ship's operational costs. Furthermore, it acts as a price anchor.
The price anchor.
Yeah. When the average consumer sees a suite going for $200,000, suddenly the $4,000 balcony cabin feels like a reasonable bargain. It elevates the perceived prestige of the entire vessel.
Okay, but if I am a billionaire, or just a very wealthy family, dropping $200,000 on a suite with my own private hot tub, an indoor slide, and an immersive train car restaurant, do I even care what country the ship is parked next to? Like, are we even traveling anymore or just visiting a gated floating theme park?
This raises an important question, right? And it's the ultimate realization of this business model. They do not want you to care what country you are parked next to. The Hero of the Seas is designed to make the destination entirely irrelevant because the ship itself is the destination.
And when you look at the actual itinerary for this ship out of Miami, it perfectly proves your point. Every single sailing of the Hero of the Seas stops at Perfect Day at Coco Cay.
Which is Royal Caribbean's heavily developed private island in the Bahamas.
Exactly. They are completely closing the loop. Think about everything we just discussed today. Why deal with a third-party vendor running a Swimming with the Pigs tour where you might get dragged into federal court if a bench breaks?
Right.
Why deal with aging port infrastructure in Philadelphia that forces your guests into a motel ballroom? When they dock at their own private island, they remove the unpredictability of third-party vendors. They bypass independent port authorities and construction delays entirely.
And financially, it is the holy grail. I mean, when you stop at a public tour in Nassau or Cozumel, passenger spending leaks out into the local economy.
Right. People buy local food, they hire cabs, pay local tour guides.
Exactly. But when a ship carrying 7,600 passengers docks at Coco Cay, every single dollar spent, whether it's on a cabana rental, a water slide pass, or a pina colada, goes directly back into Royal Caribbean's corporate ecosystem. They own the ship, they own the destination, and they capture 100% of the revenue.
It is brilliant, but it is also, I don't know, a little dystopian. They looked at the messy reality of the world, the lawsuits, the crumbling ports, the unpredictable weather, and they just engineered it right out of the equation. They built a floating fortress that never really interacts with the real world at all.
Yeah, it is corporate risk management taken to its absolute physical limits. They are providing the illusion of international travel while keeping you inside a highly controlled, incredibly profitable simulation of a vacation from the moment you leave Miami until the moment you return.
It fundamentally changes what it means to take a cruise. We started today looking at off-ship accountability, where the legal lines blur the second you step onto a local excursion boat. We examined the chaotic embarkation realities on the pier, where 20th century ports are physically buckling under the demands of these massive vessels. And we saw the industry's ultimate response. Multi-billion-dollar megaships designed to turn your attention inward, capturing your time, your demographics, and your wallet inside a closed corporate loop. Next time you look at an itinerary, definitely check the fine print on those excursions and think about the insane logistics getting you on board.
Definitely. And, you know, the broader structural force shaping the industry is total vertical integration. The question for the future isn't even how big these ships will get.
Right.
It's whether they will eventually sever their ties to the land altogether. As these floating cities become increasingly self-sufficient and reliant entirely on private islands, we are rapidly approaching a reality where cruise ships simply do a continuous loop in international waters, bypassing independent foreign ports entirely.
That is a wild thought to leave on. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.